Emmet Livingston is in Goma and joins us now with more on this conflict. Emmet, first of all, let's start off with Rwanda's statement on Monday. Why does it have such a particular problem with the FDLR in a conflict that's so complex already?
Thank you, Georgia. Well, the Rwandan government is the party that won the Rwandan civil war and kicked out the genocidal regime. And the FDLR rebel group that is active in eastern DR Congo is the descendant of that regime that committed the genocide in Rwanda. So, from Kigali's point of view, this presents a dangerous threat to the country.
But they're not really a major player in this conflict, are they? In comparison, for example, to the M23, what role does the M23 play in this latest flare up of a region that has seen so much disruption and violence over the last few decades?
Certainly, the FDLR is not considered to be a credible military threat to Rwanda. It exists, but it's very weak. The M23, on the other hand, has sophisticated weaponry and it is very strong. It has been waging an active rebel campaign for the better part of 2 years, for over 2 years now, has captured large chunks of North Kivu. And when we talk about the M23 conflict, it's really the M23 that is driving the conflict. It's most often the one that is advancing and that is putting pressure on the Congolese army. And that is triggering this massive movement, this massive displacement of people.
Now, we've seen this conflict take on a new nature recently. Do you feel that the neighbors, Rwanda and DR Congo, are on a war footing at the moment?
That certainly seems to be the case, and especially so in Congo, where beefing up the military, which is notoriously weak, has been at the top of politicians' minds for a long time now. The Congolese state has significantly invested in its military over the past few years. It has brought in regional forces. It has brought in European private military contractors who are there officially to train the Congolese troops. And it has also bought sophisticated weaponry such as Chinese attack drones. And it looks to be a similar picture on the other side of the border in Rwanda.
The scope of the humanitarian crisis is immense. More than 1 million people displaced over the last 3 months alone. Why do you think this doesn't take up more space, doesn't attract more international attention?
The depressing fact of the situation is that there are bigger crises happening in the world, at least in the eyes of the international community. Ukraine and Gaza tends to dominate attention, and African conflicts historically just don't generate as much interest, or they're not considered as important. On top of that, I think there's a general sense of fatigue. People would just like this conflict to go away, and it is something that has its roots that go back decades and decades and decades. And conflict has been ongoing in Eastern DRC for 30 years. This is just another iteration of the conflict, and I think it's quite difficult to draw people's attention to it when they've been living with it for their whole lives.
Thanks very much. Emmet Livingston there speaking to us from Goma in northeastern DR Congo.